Key players in South Africa's metal and engineering sector are warning of a bleak year ahead, made worse by the uncertainties associated with load shedding, bottlenecks in the logistics infrastructure, and policy uncertainty ahead of the upcoming national and provincial elections. Given that this is a key sector for the country's economic growth prospects, there is some urgency to ensure that something happens, and quickly. Lucio Trentini is the Steel and Engineering Industries Federation of Southern Africa's CEO and joins us now. Lucio, good evening and welcome to the program. Thank you for your time. You wrote an op-ed listing a series of problems that combined make for a miserable 12 months ahead. Let's start with steel itself and demand. Some might ask, well, with the need to fix our rail network and logistics infrastructure, we need steel, so there should be demand and with it jobs. But why is that not the case?
So good afternoon and thank you for the opportunity. The steel sector is central to the well-being of this economy. At the moment, the economy has been through some tough times. This year ahead is not going to be any easier than the last 3 years we've experienced. You mentioned the blistering load shedding, high inflation, the collapse of the national logistics framework network, and then with the political uncertainty and rand and the record rand weakness, this is a tough industry to make a profit. At the moment, we are suffering immensely from absolutely no demand. The industry is flat, and on top of all this, we've got the looming industry wage negotiations that are just around the corner for us. And this is a huge sector. Its contribution to GDP is about 15%. And our share of that GDP is about 3%. It's a 900 billion rand sector in terms of turnover, in terms of total sales. And what we can't allow in the wake of this environment that I've described is for our collective bargaining conversations to go off the rails and result in another strike as we experienced in 2021. We had a 3-week strike in 2021, which led to a huge loss of jobs. And just to keep in mind that this industry has been losing 40 jobs a day for the last 15 odd years. We've dropped from a high of 500 and just under 600,000 employees in this sector to just under 300,000. So this is not a sector that is going to create jobs, and the jobs that we have to hold on to.
Yeah.
And when
Can
this
I just
industry
come in there, though, if I may, Lucio, because I want to tease out what I suspect you're going to talk about next. And when you talk about 40 jobs a day being lost over more than a decade, we also know the socio-economic impact that it brings, because likely those people would not find a job elsewhere. Whole, cities and communities have been laid waste by these layoffs. So, they've basically signed into a life of poverty. So you're saying, again, and you're bringing into the spotlight wage negotiations, and there seems to be some developments on this front in terms of, a new way mooted to ensure that it happens, that wage negotiations happen in a more organized and constructive way. Is this likely, which I suspect is the hope, to yield true understanding and collaboration between employers and unions? Because there doesn't seem to be any option otherwise.
No, we certainly are of that view, and I'm convinced that the 6 trade unions that we negotiate with, these are the biggest trade unions in the country, the National Union of Mine Workers, the National Union of Metal Workers, Solidarity and the like, and we are all feeling the pain. I mean, this is a situation that we find ourselves where no one is spared. We cannot afford to lose any more jobs, and we cannot allow this integral part of the economy to stutter and come to a halt. In 2021, we had a 3-week strike, and each day of that strike cost the economy 600 million rand per day. That's a huge amount of money in terms of lost sales, lost revenue. And there's a recognition on all sides that we have to change the way in which we engage with one another. We signed off on a relationship procedural agreement where we've built into that agreement how we are going to interact with one another, how we are going to behave. And the end game is to settle quickly, without pain, without industrial action, because a cold in this flu results in a flu throughout the economy. This sector is integral. It's a supplier and a customer to all the major sectors around us, whether you talk automotive components, agri-processing, construction, mining. Yeah. When we come to a standstill, everyone suffers along with us. And at this point in time, we don't want anyone to suffer. most importantly, the employees on our shop floor. At the moment, there's 10,000 companies in the sector, and there's just under 280,000 blue-collar workers. Every single job is important, and we need to do everything in our power. And this is the view that has been shared by other employer organizations in the sector, together with trade unions, that we have to find a middle ground to avert a total collapse of this sector. And I think we're all on the same page.
Well, very heartening to hear that that development is happening. It doesn't seem to be quite that standoffish or antagonistic environment and climate around wage negotiations, which seem to be typical. So there's a tick for that. I wanted to go into your exhortation in your piece for leaders not to get into a doom loop, but I think it's more important right now, given the devastation that you've spoken about historically, the fact that you need to hold on to these jobs and preserve them. We're not even talking about growing in the sector. Is government doing what it should be doing to assist, Lucio? Are they there? Are they front and center as they should be?
Yeah, look, I mean, the Steel and Engineering Industries Federation, of which I am, one of the leaders, is front and foremost in making itself available to work with government at a macro level. There's a lot of good news happening at macro level. Unfortunately, for the let's call it the man in the street, times are extremely tough. The cost of living crisis is real for most people, not just people who work on the shop floor. Unfortunately, with the election looming, I suspect that the focus of government may not necessarily be on what is right for the economy. We're very clear. Government needs to embrace the willingness of business to lend a hand. This is an engineering sector. We have engineers, we have skilled people. We know how to fix things. We know how to make things work. And we've been making ourselves available at every possible opportunity. Can we turn things around? I think we can. How do we fix South Africa? We need to get people working. We need to cut into the unemployment rate, which is absolutely unacceptable. And it is an indicator that could completely unstabilize the fabric that holds this country together. And this is the view shared by organised labour, the biggest trade unions in this country, and most of big business, at least big business that is represented by our organisation. We represent 170,000 workers employed by our members throughout the country. And the stakes are high. The stakes are extremely high, and there's no time to waste. Our agreement is in place until the end of June. We've been talking with the unions since October, November last year. We've signed a landmark, historic relationship agreement, which commits us to doing certain things in a certain manner. And if nothing else, it will help us to achieve where we all need to get to. Because if we fail, the industry fails, and if the industry fails, the economy fails, and if the economy fails, South Africa fails. And that's in no one's best interest, and certainly not ours. And
certainly not a future and a fate that we even dare to contemplate. Lucio, thank you very much for talking to us tonight and waving that warning flag. Again, government needs to be there. Business is saying we are ready to work. Lucio Trentini is the Steel and Engineering Industries Federation of Southern Africa CEO.